The Vatican is hiding things from you in plain sight, and you probably didn't even notice. Prepare to have your minds blown by the stolen obelisks of Vatican City, the mysterious Pinecone statue of the Vatican courtyard, and plenty of other ancient pagan symbolism. Are you ready to learn the truth? Let's find out. Pineal gland and pinecone symbolism. In a courtyard in front of the Vatican Museum, known as the Court of the Pinecone, there's a giant 13-foot-tall bronze pinecone. But why? Officially called the Fontana della Pina, this pinecone was originally part of a Roman fountain. It once stood next to the temple of Isis near the Pantheon. During the Middle Ages, it was moved to be displayed in the courtyard of the old St. Peter's Basilica. However, in 1608, it was moved a second time to its current location. To anyone visiting Vatican City, seeing the Fontana della Pina is likely on their itinerary. But do they really know the true story behind this mysterious pinecone? Deep inside the human brain, there's a tiny mysterious gland that has fascinated people for centuries, the pineal gland. This pea-sized pinecone-shaped part of the endocrine system is located near the brain's center. It has also long been linked to symbols of sacred eyes and pinecones in ancient cultures. But what's the big deal with this tiny gland? The pineal gland, also known as the pineal body, is found in most vertebrates and is often called an atrophied photoreceptor or a vestigial eye. Despite its small size, it's easy to spot on modern X-rays due to its high levels of calcification. Scientists have only recently started to uncover its biological purpose, but the intrigue surrounding it goes back millennia. Named for its resemblance to a pine cone, the pineal gland has inspired numerous cultural symbols. In ancient times, the pine cone was seen as the fruit of the evergreen tree, symbolizing eternal life. Its shape also made it a phallic symbol, representing the very creation of life. But how does this all tie back to the pineal gland? Ancient civilizations around the world featured pinecone imagery in their art and rituals. In Assyria, winged genii often held buckets and pinecones in palace reliefs. Some of these images can be seen at King Sargon II's palace in Dur Sharukin, dating back to between 713 and 716 BC. These figures used pinecones in purification or fertilization rituals, emphasizing their sacred significance. In Egypt, the staff of Osiris, dating from around 1224 BC, showcased two serpents intertwining up to a pinecone at the top. Some researchers connect these serpents to the Hindu concept of Kundalini energy. The pinecone likely symbolized the pineal gland or Ajna chakra, known as the third eye. Even the Greeks and Romans got in on the pinecone action. Dionysus, known to the Romans as Bacchus, often carried a thyrsus, a staff adorned with ivy leaves and topped with a pinecone. This staff was used in mystic rituals, highlighting the pinecone's spiritual importance. The Romans took it a step further by constructing a massive bronze pinecone statue, which, as you know now, resides in front of the Vatican today. So what's the connection between the pinecone and the pineal gland? Many believe the pineal gland is linked to the concept of the third eye, representing spiritual insight and higher consciousness. Ancient cultures seem to understand this, using the pinecone as a powerful symbol of enlightenment and eternal life. From Assyrian purification rites to Egyptian spiritual staffs and Roman fountains, the pinecone has long been a potent symbol of life, enlightenment, and the mysterious powers of the human brain. So, is there something the Vatican knows that it doesn't want to share with the rest of us? Cybele and dragon worship. Have you ever wondered why some symbols in religion look oddly familiar or ancient? Well, buckle up because we're diving into a whirlwind of history, ancient gods, and some unexpected fashion choices in the Catholic Church. Let's unravel the mystery of Cybele and dragon worship. First, let's talk symbols. Since ancient times, symbols have been the secret language of religions, from Egypt to Rome. These symbols conveyed powerful meanings, often connected to gods and spiritual beliefs. But here's the kicker. Many of these symbols are still around today, hidden in plain sight, often unnoticed or misunderstood. Take a stroll through a Catholic church and you might see some curious headgear. The zucchetto, a small skull cap worn by priests, cardinals, and the Pope, isn't just a quirky fashion statement. So why do Catholic leaders wear it? Well, it's not just about covering bald spots. The zucchetto has roots in the ancient worship of Cybele, the mother goddess of Rome. Back in 2000 BC, Cybele's followers, including sun priests in Egypt, sported a similar cap to show respect and submission to this powerful goddess. But hold on to your hats, because the plot thickens. The Bible itself warns against worshipping Cybele, known in some texts as Ashtoreth, a goddess of fertility, sexuality, and war. In Judges chapter 10 verse 6, the Israelites are called out for serving the Baals and the Ashtoreths. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 7, it says that a man shouldn't cover his head since he's the image and glory of God. So why do the most prominent Catholic leaders wear the cap of Cybele? Good question. I don't really have a definitive answer for you. It's a bizarre tradition based on pagan beliefs that's still practiced today. And speaking of head coverings, what's up with the mitre, the tall pointed hat worn by Catholic clergy? Well, this funky hat represents Dagon, the Babylonian fish god. Yep, you heard that right. Dagon was a big deal in ancient Babylon, symbolizing agriculture, food surplus, and good fortune. Babylonian priests wore a fish-shaped headdress with an open fish mouth on their heads and a fish's body draped over them like a cloak. But this was no mere costume. It was a serious religious symbol. And guess what? The same fishy fashion sense is alive and well today. Catholic cardinals, bishops, and the Pope don a mitre that looks strikingly similar to Dagon's headgear. You can even spot Pope Francis I rocking this ancient symbol. According to Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 16, God warned the Jews against worshipping Babylonian gods, yet here we see a nod to these deities in modern religious attire. I mean, that can't be good. So why do these ancient symbols persist in the Catholic Church? Is it a nod to tradition, a hidden message, or something else entirely? It's a question worth pondering next time you spot one of these symbols. From Equinox to Easter. Want to know how we went from a solemn resurrection story to bunnies and eggs on Easter? Boy, are you in for a treat. It doesn't make much sense when you think about it. I mean, what in the world do bunnies have to do with Jesus? And bunnies don't lay eggs, so how the heck do they fit in? Grab your baskets and let's hop into the colorful history of this springtime celebration. Easter, celebrated by Christians worldwide for about 1700 years, marks Jesus Christ's resurrection. But how did we end up with eggs, bunnies, and baby chicks in a story about crucifixion and resurrection? Spoiler alert, it's all about rebirth and blending old traditions with new ones. Back in the day when Christianity was spreading, it didn't simply erase existing pagan customs. Instead, it cleverly incorporated them. This blending made it easier for people to accept the new religion while keeping some of their existing beloved traditions. Think of it as a cultural smoothie, mixing the old and the new for a flavor everyone could enjoy. Take the name Easter itself. Ever heard of Istra, the Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring? No? Well, you're not alone. According to the Venerable Bede, an English monk from the 8th century, April used to be called Eostromanath, or Easter month, named after Istra, and during that month people celebrated with feasts in her honor. This springtime goddess symbolized new beginnings, much like the themes of resurrection and rebirth in Christianity. Now what about those eggs? Eggs have been a symbol of new life across various cultures. Ancient Persians used to give decorated eggs as gifts during the spring equinox, marking the new year. The egg, seemingly lifeless but bursting with new life, perfectly embodies the miracle of rebirth, both in nature and in Christian teachings. And then there's the Easter bunny, or should I say the Easter hare. The hare has been a symbol of fertility and new life for ages. I mean, haven't you heard the saying, breeding like rabbits, or something similar to that? Usually the phrase is directed to a couple with lots of children. In 18th century Europe, some folks tried to banish hare-related customs from Easter due to their pagan roots, but these attempts couldn't stop the the bunny from hopping into our hearts and holiday traditions. Even the timing of Easter has a pagan twist. Instead of falling on a fixed date, Easter is celebrated on the Sunday after the first full moon following the spring equinox. This lunar scheduling mirrors ancient pagan practices and was decided at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Talk about moonlighting as a Christian holiday. And as Christianity spread, it layered its resurrection story over existing spring celebrations of rebirth. This unification made the new faith more relatable to those who already celebrated the cyclical renewal of nature. Next time you're nibbling on chocolate bunnies or hunting for Easter eggs, remember that these fun traditions are deeply rooted in ancient customs celebrating new life and rebirth. This is certainly something the Vatican would rather keep buried. The Pope would much rather you believe that Easter has always been about Jesus and the resurrection. But now you know the truth. It doesn't mean you have to stop eating jelly beans though. But first, it's shout-out time. I wanted to give a big thank you to Kieran Daredevil and Savannah Shepherd for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. The Obelisks of Vatican City. What the heck is that tall, pointy structure in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City? Many people have wondered this, no doubt. So let me give you some answers. Standing proud in front of St. Peter's Basilica is an Egyptian obelisk, and it's not just a fancy decoration. Obelisks were a big deal in ancient Egypt, marking the entrance to temples and signaling zones of sun worship. They represented Ra, the Egyptian sun god, who was the ultimate deity, the creator of humanity, and the source of all light and heat. You can think of Ra as the ancient world's MVP, providing everything from warmth to crops. So how did an Egyptian obelisk end up in the heart of Vatican City? Well, this particular one has had quite the journey. Originally constructed by Pharaoh Ramses II for the Temple of Ra in Heliopolis, it was later moved to Rome by the Romans, who were really into Egyptian culture. It was placed near a shrine dedicated to the Egyptian goddess Isis, and eventually found its way to the Pantheon, a temple for all the gods. When the Pantheon became a Roman Catholic church, it was dedicated to the Virgin Mary and all the martyrs, blending pagan and Christian traditions. But the most famous move came in 1586 AD, when Pope Sixtus V decided to place this obelisk in front of St. Peter's Basilica. And it's not just plopped down randomly. It's surrounded by a sun wheel that aligns with the vernal equinox, the summer solstice, and the winter solstice. During the sunrise on the vernal equinox, the obelisk casts a shadow towards the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. This isn't just a cool shadow trick. It's said to symbolize the union of the sun god and the moon goddess. It's like a cosmic pagan PDA right in the middle of Vatican City. Now let's flip open the Bible to Exodus chapter 20 verse 4 to 5, where God's second commandment essentially says that you shouldn't create a carved figure or any representation of things in the sky above, on the earth below, or in the water under the earth. It goes on to say that you shouldn't bow down to them or worship them because the one true God is a jealous God. So if that's the case, why does the Catholic Church venerate this pagan monument? The answer might lie in the blend of traditions. As Christianity spread, it often incorporated local customs to make the new faith more relatable. The obelisk, once a symbol of the Egyptian sun god Ra, became part of the Christian landscape. This perhaps symbolizes the Church's embrace of all history and the continuity of worship, albeit with a different focus. The towering obelisk in St. Peter's Square is a monument that bridges ancient sun worship with modern faith, casting shadows and questions in equal measure. Why does the Church revere it? Maybe because history, like the sun, always finds a way to shine through. The peacock in ancient myth. Once one starts noticing symbols around them, it's like finding hidden Easter eggs in a video game. They appear everywhere. Take the peacock, for instance. The realization of its significance often dawns upon visitors to the Vatican. Many are excited to photograph the famous giant Pinecone statue and the world within a world sculpture in the Pinecone courtyard. However, what really stands out are the two regal peacocks on either side of the Pinecone. The pinecone itself is no ordinary garden decoration. As I mentioned already, it symbolizes the pineal gland, often called the third eye chakra. This mystical all-seeing eye, also known as the evil eye or the mind's eye, is all about reaching higher consciousness and becoming the creator. It's quite profound for a courtyard ornament. But the peacocks are equally significant. In the Catholic Church, the peacock represents immortality and resurrection. According to legend, peacock flesh does not decay after death, and when they shed their feathers, new ones come in even more vibrant. And that's why peacock feathers are used to decorate churches around Easter, mirroring the resurrection of Jesus Christ. These feathers are also prevalent in art and iconography related to death and rebirth. But the peacock symbolism extends even further. In Muslim mythology, the peacock guards the gates of paradise. However, it's also the creature that let Satan into the Garden of Eden to tempt Eve. In ancient Greece, the peacock is linked to Argos, a monster with 100 eyes, representing the all-seeing eye. This concept ties back to medieval Europe, where peacock feathers were seen as bad luck. This all-seeing and evil eye concept connects to the third eye chakra, which is represented by the pinecone. So the presence of peacocks by the pinecone in the Vatican signifies duality, good luck and bad luck, higher consciousness and subconsciousness. The peacock also has deep roots in other cultures as well. In Egyptian mythology, it's associated with the sun gods Amun-Ra and Horus, who are killed and resurrected. In Hindu mythology, the peacock is linked to goddess Saraswati, who represents knowledge and truth. However, here, the peacock symbolizes unpredictability and mood swings. Hermetic philosopher Heinrich Kunrat called the peacock the soul of the world, symbolizing nature's power to bring forth life. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung also saw the peacock as a symbol of the self, renewing its feathers annually, just like nature. So ultimately, the two peacocks by the pinecone represent the duality of consciousness. They remind us that positive and negative thoughts create reality, good or bad. Despite its beauty, the peacock is also a symbol of pride, one of the 7 deadly sins. However, this sense of accomplishment can be double-edged, urging one to take satisfaction in achievements without seeking undue recognition. And interestingly, peacocks eat poisonous snakes, representing the conquest of inner demons. That being so, defeating these demons elevates consciousness and transforms energy. And learning to do this can lead to a higher state of awareness. That's certainly something to think about the next time you see a peacock. And that's especially the case if you see the peacocks in Vatican City's Pinecone courtyard. The ritual of the New Year. When the Vatican celebrates New Year's on January 1st every year with their special papal mass, do you think they know that they're really celebrating a pagan god? Let's talk about the fascinating origins of our New Year's celebrations, which trace back to an ancient Roman god named Janus. Thank goodness for that J, am I right? This two-faced deity, who has no Greek equivalent, is all about traditions. One face looks back to the past, reflecting and analyzing, while the other looks forward with hope. You can picture him as the ultimate time management/life coach. Janus wasn't just a minor figure, he was the master of beginnings. The Roman poet Ovid described him as two-headed Janus, an opener of the softly gliding year. He presided over doors and gates, symbolizing all transitions. You know that old saying, when one door closes, another door opens? Well, Janus was basically the personification of that phrase. Whether it was the start of the day, month, or year, Janus was involved. January, the first month of the year, is even named after him. His role was to oversee all transitions, from stepping over a threshold to starting a new job, from birth to death, and even the shift from war to peace. The Romans took their doorways very seriously, as weird as that may sound. They believed that walking through them with intention could bring good fortune. They often placed images of Janus or carved a key above doorways to remind them to be mindful of their transitions. Why a key? Well, Janus was often depicted holding a key in his hand. You know, to open doors and gates and such. This practice continues in many cultures today, as symbols above doorways serve as blessings or welcoming gestures. So if you're looking for a way to bring good fortune into your home, consider placing a meaningful symbol above your door. Honoring Janus during the new year involved rituals designed to please the god. A traditional offering was a key. Surprise, surprise. This gift represented Janus's control over gateways and new beginnings. And to truly embrace the spirit of Janus, people would reflect on the past year and then plan for the future. This ritual of symbolically looking both ways at the threshold of the new year is one of humanity's oldest and most enduring traditions. So as you ring in the new year, think of Janus, place a key above your door, and take a moment to reflect on the past and plan for the future. It's a ritual that has stood the test of time, and for good reason. After all, who wouldn't want a bit of extra luck and wisdom as they step into a new year? The Wheel of Baal. Now, who's up for some more sun worship? When I introduced you to the Egyptian obelisk in St. Peter's Square, I mentioned that it's surrounded by a sun wheel. Or more specifically, it's surrounded by the Wheel of Baal. But who the heck is Baal? What in the world is a sun wheel? And what is it doing in Vatican City? Right in the center of St. Peter's Square, in the heart of Vatican City, you'll find an 8-rayed sun wheel design, a symbol with deep pagan roots. In the middle of this sun wheel stands a towering obelisk, which was transported from Heliopolis to Rome by Emperor Caligula. And fun fact, some claim that the word obelisk literally translates to Baal's organ of reproduction, or Baal shaft. Yikes. Who was Baal? Well, he was a god of weather, specifically rainstorms and fertility. He was worshipped by the Phoenicians and Canaanites. Today, Baal is best known as being the antagonist of the Yahweh cult of the Israelites from the Bible. And according to cuneiform tablets dating back to the mid-14th and late 13th centuries, Baal replaced El, becoming the king of the gods. The Vatican's obelisk originally served as a monument in ancient Egypt, dedicated to sun worship. Its presence in St. Peter's Square is not just a nod to ancient architecture. It carries with it the symbolism of the sun, linking back to the worship of Ra, the Egyptian sun god. And to add a twist, there's also a smaller 4-rayed sun wheel in the square, similar to one found on an altar stone in the ancient temple of Baal at Hatzor. These sun wheels and obelisks were symbols deeply ingrained in the pagan cultures of the Romans and Egyptians. Now, here's where it gets even more intriguing. The Catholic Church, which established its dominance in Rome, incorporated these pagan symbols into its sacred spaces. Does this mean the Church secretly worships these ancient gods? Well, conspiracy theorists might jump to that conclusion. However, it's more likely a case of blending traditions to create continuity and acceptance among converts. Romans were very familiar with these symbols, associating them with their own gods and rituals. When the Church incorporated these symbols, it helped ease the transition for pagans converting to Christianity. But critics argue that this inclusion is a sign of idolatry. They point to biblical passages like 2 Kings 21, which condemns the worship of false gods and idols. Interestingly, though, the sun wheel design also pops up in other ancient cultures, like the Babylonian symbol of the sun god Shamash. This symbol featured a sun disk with 4 wavy stars and sunbeams, often found in Assyrian columns and wall reliefs. In the Christian context, the monogram of Christ using the Greek letters Chi, X, and Rho, P, sometimes forms a 6-rayed sun wheel when superimposed. It looks something like this. So what's really going on in St. Peter's Square? The presence of these ancient symbols could be seen as the Church's embrace of history. It could be an attempt to weave together diverse cultural threads into a single tapestry. Or maybe it's just that ancient designs look really cool and add a layer of mystique to the modern religious experience. But symbols often carry the meanings we assign to them. So whether it's the sun wheel, the obelisk, or any other ancient motif, their significance evolves with time and interpretation. The Satanic Hexagram. The 6-sided star, also known as the hexagram, is often associated with satanic rituals and dark magic. So what is it doing in the realm of Catholicism? First, let's clear up what the hexagram is all about. This 6-sided star has been a powerful symbol for ages, used by ancient Babylonians, Egyptians, and Assyrians. These cultures were known to engage in practices that some claim were all about worshipping Satan. Helena Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophical Society, famously wrote, "Lucifer is the true god." She also included the hexagram in her society's emblem. Talk about embracing the dark side. But it doesn't stop there. Satanists, Luciferians, astrologers, and witches have all used the hexagram to summon demonic powers. The number 6 is central to this symbol. 6 points, 6 triangles, and a 6-sided hexagon, which numerically equals 666, the infamous number of the beast. Now here's where things get interesting. Many Christians know this symbol as the Star of David, but historians argue that King David never actually used a star. The name sounds nice and innocent, but it's a bit of historical misdirection. In reality, it was King Solomon, David's son, who dabbled in witchcraft, magic, and idolatrous worship. He used the hexagram in rituals dedicated to deities like Ashtoreth and Moloch. In the Bible, Stephen accused the Jewish leaders, saying, "And you took up the tent of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, the figures which you made, in order to worship them." Acts chapter 7 verse 43. This accusation suggests that the hexagram had dark associations long before it became known as the Star of David. So why does the Catholic Church use this seemingly satanic symbol? This 6-sided star can be seen multiple times on the floor of the Vatican Museum and has been featured on the Pope's mitre in the past. But is it a sign of hidden allegiances, or simply a misunderstood relic of history? Maybe the Church adapted it to connect different cultures, or it's just another ancient symbol added to its many traditions. Or maybe the Pope worships Satan in his free time. Okay, it's probably not that last one, but who really knows? Saturnalia turns Christmas. How did a rowdy Roman festival transform into the cozy gift-giving holiday we know as Christmas? To answer that question, we have to take a trip back to ancient Rome. Get ready to learn how Saturnalia morphed into one of the most celebrated holidays in the world. This is definitely not something the Vatican wants people to know. If you have never heard of Saturnalia before, don't worry, you're not alone, and that's by design. Saturnalia was held in honor of the Roman god Saturn. It was a festival that brought the party to ancient Rome. On this special day, certain roles were reversed. Slaves and masters dined together, everyone wore colorful clothing instead of togas, and gambling was encouraged. It was a celebration of the Golden Age, a mythical time of peace and prosperity. The festival, which had its roots in the Greek festival Chronia, took place in midwinter and marked the end of the harvest season. And Saturn, being an agricultural god, was the star of the show. The festivities included feasting, gift-giving, and even crowning a ruler of the Saturnalia, whose whims everyone had to obey. Think of it as an ancient version of the office holiday party, but with way more freedom and merriment. Gifts exchanged during Saturnalia included simple items like pottery, dice, and candles, reminiscent of the trinkets we stuff into stockings today. Even writing verses akin to modern Christmas cards was a common practice. As Rome transitioned to Christianity in the 4th century AD, the exuberance of Saturnalia couldn't be entirely suppressed. Instead, many of its customs were absorbed into the new holiday we all know and love, Christmas. The date of December 25th, celebrated as the birth of Jesus Christ, coincides with the Roman festival of Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the unconquered sun. This clever move helped ease the pagan Romans into the new Christian traditions. Most scholars don't believe that Jesus was actually born on December 25th. Instead, the date merged with existing pagan festivities to make the transition smoother. After all, what's a better way to convert people than by keeping their favorite holiday traditions? Today, we see the echoes of Saturnalia in our Christmas celebrations. The feasting, the gift-giving, and the overall sense of joy and community. Even the concept of Christmas trees originated from this ancient holiday. In fact, evergreens were worshipped back then. Romans didn't bring the trees inside, but they would definitely decorate them with sun symbols and stars, which should sound extremely familiar. In Scandinavia, however, when Saturnalia spread there, people would bring evergreens into their homes during the winter solstice in order to scare away the devil. While Saturnalia didn't become Christmas in a straightforward way, its festive spirit lingers on, making the holiday season a time of warmth and togetherness for families around the world. Next time you hang up your stocking or give a gift, remember that you're taking part in a tradition that dates back to ancient Rome, minus the togas and slave master role reversals, of course. Transubstantiation. The Holy Communion, or Eucharist, is one of the most intriguing aspects of Catholicism. It involves the transformation of bread and wine into the actual flesh and blood of Jesus Christ during Mass, a process known as Transubstantiation. Unlike other symbolic rituals, Catholics believe this transformation is literal. They consume the body and blood of Christ to become one with God. But where did this idea come from? Surprisingly, similar rituals existed in the ancient Greco-Roman world, specifically within the mysterious and secretive mystery religions. These underground cults often involved shared meals where participants symbolically consumed their god's flesh and blood. Take the Mithraic mysteries, for example. This cult, which was popular in the Roman Empire around 300 BC, worshipped Mithra, the god of friendship, contracts, and order. Followers of Mithraism would partake in rituals involving cake and a sacred drink called Homa. This drink was believed to embody God's essence. Sounds familiar, right? But that's not all. Even earlier, around 3100 BC in Egypt, priests consecrated cakes to transform them into the flesh of the god Osiris, which were then eaten. This shows that the concept of consuming a deity's essence has ancient roots and wasn't unique to Christianity or Mithraism. So there you have it. The ritual of the Eucharist has deep historical connections, evolving from ancient practices where consuming a god's essence was a common theme. While Catholics today might not think of Mithra or Osiris during communion, these ancient traditions highlight a continuity in religious practices. From Egyptian priests to Roman cultists, the journey of this tradition is as rich and complex as the act of transubstantiation itself. Christian art from pagan Rome. In 2012, Vatican archaeologists showed off the beautifully restored tomb of the Aureli family, giving us a fascinating look at how Christian art evolved from pagan Rome. This 3rd century tomb, found in 1919 under what is now a Fiat car showroom in Rome, revealed a mix of different religious symbols from that time. The tomb's walls are covered in paintings that blend pagan, Christian, and Gnostic symbols. Monsignor Giovanni Caru said these images marked the beginning of Rome's shift from various pagan cults and Jewish beliefs to Christianity. The artwork reflected a time when Rome was becoming more Christian. The murals on the walls featured great philosophers, colorful animals, pretty landscapes, and scenes from Homer's The Odyssey. There were also mysterious figures like a woman with a snake under her feet and a man creating smaller men beside him. Scholars debated whether these figures represented biblical stories like Eve in the Garden of Eden and the creation of Adam, or myths like a nymph in the Garden of the Hesperides and Prometheus creating man. Regardless, Fabrizio Visconti believed the overall theme was about waiting for the afterlife, a concept important to early Christians. The tomb's decorations showed the diverse and tolerant atmosphere of Rome in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, before Christians faced intense persecution. The restoration of this tomb took over a decade. Barbara Mazzei, who led the restoration, described the careful process of removing a thick white crust that had covered the murals. They used advanced laser techniques to carefully remove the crust without damaging the paint, revealing vibrant images beneath. One surprising discovery was a scene from The Odyssey where Ulysses' men turn back into humans from swine. The Aureli tomb, dating back to the early 3rd century, is a remarkable example of how Christian art developed from Rome's pagan past. While it's only open to small, pre-booked groups, this hidden gem shows how Christian art gradually emerged. Thanks for watching. What else do you think the Vatican is hiding? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.